we have user class.
Yeah.
Now, one difference of how models implemented in Agile Toolkit and anywhere else is Agile Toolkit permits and wants you to use object-oriented approach. And with that, we can create a user folder. Inside the folder, we can create me, PHP. So that it is going to be a class, model user me, but it will automatically load data of currently logged in user, for example. How does it do it? By from this IP out get ID. Okay, let's see if it works. So, for example, yeah, in here I will create a new MVC form. Set model user and we need to record no. So now so we define the model which automatically loads the ID of the current user. That's one example how we can use models like this. So if you specify user me, you can't be wrong, and it will properly bind it to the current user. That's actually quite useful form. I'm going to show you another thing which is called form and save. So it's a very simple class which extends MVC form, but when it's submitted, it is going to update itself. Really handy, and it will say saved. So if we back to this and exchange this to form and save, oops, there is a save button, and if I click save, it automatically updates my details. I can change my password, for example. I think it's really interesting functionality, and we might want to add it into a separate page for our account setting. Account PHP. Still need the password check. Okay, like this.
Can I ask you why you put the me.php file inside the user folder?
The class it will be loading is model underscore user underscore me, and model is here, user is here, and me is here. The common practice with classes is if we want to create a modification of a user, so just some case, then I'll simply not to introduce a mess. I create a folder user, and then there's going to be all the modifications.
Okay.
If it's something completely different, it will go alongside the user, such as
On the same level.
yeah, task.
So basically, just to understand better, when you say MVC, right? You have a model, a controller, and a view, right?
Yeah.
In this case, the model is the logic, right?
The way how I see it working most efficiently is if you have a view and the view is generic, because now button and all don't need not much modification of button or a form, and then model is something you define, but controller which takes data out of the model and puts into the view is again generic. So theoretically, you should be able to decide which controller to use, and then how this data is getting binded together. But by default, it's pretty simple. So when you call set model like this, it is going to create controller and transparently for you import all the fields.
Page will be our sort of view. Is that correct?
Yeah, page is view. I sent you the link about this witty framework, and it said it very nicely that all the Ruby on Rails style frameworks, code igniters, they're page oriented networks. They work on the level of a page, while a framework like Witty and framework like Agile Toolkit, they work on object level. So you have objects for a page. Theoretically, you can also bind page with a model. Maybe if you're doing CMS engine, it might make sense. In our case, it doesn't make much sense. But it makes sense to do it on a view level. So when you create multiple views on the page, and each view is associated with a model.
From a point of view of a beginner or a front-end developer like me, it's a bit difficult to take a grasp of such advanced object-oriented development.
Yeah.
And when you, for example, other frameworks that are more based with pages, it's a bit more strong, this difference between the controller, the view, and the model. So you have your classes on a model folder. The controller would takes the classes and put it in the view, and then you have the view, which is basically a page. But here it's so powerful because you can do whatever you want in a certain way.
Yeah. Well, you can say that Agile Toolkit is more difficult than a regular framework, but at the same time it is simple.
Yeah.
And it attempts to hide difficulty behind objects. So when you connect your view with model, a lot of stuff happens inside. But for you, it seems like no, it just works together, and the code is quite simple. Okay, yeah. So we need to work on tasks now. By the way, I just wanted to show you another thing, and it's regarding this menu. So we are on the tasks page. We need to delete this form because it moved to another page, and we need a separate page for separate menu entry for account. But if user is not logged in, he should see different menu. So what we can do here is write if this echo is logged in. So if user is inside, we will show him a different menu. But if he is not logged in, we will show him register and login, but login will go to tasks. Okay, so I'm not logged in, I have register, which leads to register form, login leading to this, blocks, 1, 2, 3, and when I'm in, it's tasks, I need to add account as well. One note here is if I use a single label here, what it does, it creates uppercase and shows it with uppercase in here, it does like this in fields, in column names. So if you don't specify the label, it just uppercase that. Yeah, that's just handy. All right, now let's get on with the task. And for the task, we will need to create a table first. Task D. So let's say there is a name as well. Typically the reason why I use always name is that, again, name, the field name is used by default when we work with models. You will see it later. That will be the name of the task, and then maybe description, which is text. We need user ID. No, hold on. Let me add this differently. Delete.
Yeah, that field is interesting because it has to be with a relationship, right?
Yeah, oh, it's wrong. It allows me to connect tables like this. Come on. So it adds automatically user ID, and it creates foreign key as well. So when we could do, for example, when user is deleted, it also is going to delete all the keys. It's a standard thing of MySQL, and works nicely. Also, you won't be able to create a task without user ID. It will complain. And we need a due date. Due date. Date. Yeah, that's all.
I think so.
Task. Yeah, all right. That's it for now. So next we go synchronize. Date 9. Okay, so it's adding a new table for tasks. All right, done. Next is model. Again, I prefer creating model by hand, but then I know there is a model generator there which can inspect your schema and create models on the fly, but they're real simple, so it's not difficult to create. File task PHP. I will just copy user and then modify it. Task. Okay, field, it has name, have this description is long field, so we will set a different type for him. By default type is just string, yeah, but we can set text, which is a long text, so it will display a big field. Then due date, which is going to be type date, and password we don't need, but there is another field which is this called user ID. Okay, now to make this field relate, we need to specify it like this and define model user. Okay. So that means that this field is linked with the user model, which just defines relationship. Next, let's go to tasks and add a CRUD Yeah, this CRUD set number task. Back here, tasks. Okay, and now let's say the always created task is called clear garage. Description you see it's a long field. This automatically, so the view automatically recognizes the fields and use on blocks. See, because it's text field, it automatically shortens it. And if I move mouse over, it shows me this tip. It doesn't do it in normal field. And the date is converted as well properly. This can be changed in settings if user is in States, for example. And user is also formatted. It stores as a reference, but it displays as job logs. Now you might say, no, how does it know this? Okay, and you know how we can test. It's if we say CRUD equals this, and then if CRUD grid, then CRUD grid get you the bug. So now we're able to see what kind of query was created. So this is even a breakdown. So one of the fields actually did a subselect to get a name from the table user. That's what I mentioned, that to have column name is important. Otherwise, we would need to redefine it and define which column is used here. Another way how we can do debug is if we use a model. Okay, let's me actually go into task, and here I could do this debug. So I enable it for the whole model, and effect is the same. But if I try to add something, it is displaying me the query again, and it says user ID cannot be null. Okay, so I'll delete the bug for now. Now, the next thing you might say, since I blocked this job blocks, why can I add task for a different user, for John? And to clean this up, let's again create a model here, which is going to be my task. So tasks for only
Similar to me.php.
Yeah. Task new file my.php. What should we call my? I know. Yeah, and it will be similar, but again different as well. So just using this as a base, task mine extends task, and in here model allows us to create conditions. So I'm not going to use now because I want to show how it transforms the task list, and I need to use task mine in here. So it's not going to affect anything right away, but as I add condition, for example, user ID equals this IP out and get ID like this. Now if I refresh, you see it only showed me my tasks. But the problem is I can still add a task as a different user. There is another construction, and it's called set master field. It works exactly as the same condition, but it does a few more things. So first of all, it narrows down the selection, but then it hides the selection field, and as I add a new task, it will automatically be assigned to me. So it also uses the default value, and this is the right way to how we can specify. So you see, by using this, if I go back to the UI code and I use any view with task mine, the condition is always going to be in here. Again, I can probably look at that if I do CRUD. So what happens here is it adds a condition where from task where task user ID is 3. So it's always there. It actually works and deletes as well. So I won't be able, even if I reverse engineer the query in here, I won't be able to delete the task from a wrong user.
Someone else.
Yeah, so this ID is not available. This is really strong way, especially if you have a large database. You can define conditions and then you can rely on them, and you don't need always to remember all the conditions when you write code, which is important. It's a really strong one.
Speaking of large website, can I ask you if regarding scalability, if we have 1,000 of users, do we have to be worried, or?
Agile Toolkit, as any framework, it might introduce some of the overheads, but if you mess up as developer and, for example, forget to create index keys somewhere, then now it's going to be slow. And if everything is fine in the backend, then the overhead which Agile Toolkit introduced, it's not so big. I actually have a testing page. Speed. So this page, it just produced me 200 forms. Oh, there they are, all 200 forms, and it also shows the execution time. So all the 200 forms were produced in 1 second, basically. So it just displays that there is a slight overhead, but it's not as bad. It's normal. It's pretty decent actually. And in this time, it created 3,069 objects, because each form, it requires to have a template, button is an object, field is an object. So, but it's pretty optimized. There's also each of this form interacts properly. They actually work real nice. So you shouldn't be worried. If database grows well, grows large, Agile Toolkit can easily handle that indeed. Before, okay, now we have CRUD here, but we need something nicer. And we do need something nicer.
Okay.
Yeah, so one idea was, how about, okay, let's add a form first, which will be for new task entry. So you type a task, it creates a new task. This, okay, form, I'm not going to use form MVC form, just to keep it really simple. And then show you how you can work directly with model as well.
Okay.
Which is important. So form, okay. Field new task. to specify type line. Okay, so good enough. Do we need button? Actually, it might work without the button as well. If you just hit enter, it will work.
So now we have this field.
Yeah, if I add return here, it will not execute the next two lines, so it's just cleaner. My idea was we add a form like this, and then we add this
Button.
grid. Grid first. Set model tasks mine, and we'll be interested in name. Task without the S. Okay, so it shows me my tasks.
Okay.
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 You want button as well? Form button. Hi. Submit. Okay, nothing happens if I click. Regarding the look of the form, we can use a number of styles in the form. Set using form set form class method. For example, I could say vertical, and it looks like this: label, field, and then save button. Or I could say horizontal, and its field will go from the left to right. So we have 4 fields. It will be like this. Not always you can implement what you want with MVC form and binding on models. So sometimes you need to decouple them and create just a simple form, and then when form is submitted, if form, you need to do something manually with this. Let's say form. Let's try to output it JS alert, but instead of writing 1, 2, 3, I will use form get new task. So I'll take the field and then execute that. So now if I say something here, I forgot the univ.
What is univ?
Well, I was expecting that. Univ is a plugin for jQuery, which is used for convenience and stores all sorts of simple functions. Because if we look at the network here again, when I click the save button, it's been mapped into a form where the form goes first and then executes some code in here. So in PHP is the beauty of this. For example, if I say test in here and then I use a single bracket, yeah, expecting JavaScript to fail, it will not, because it will escape them properly. Or if I use a object here, let's say form, it also is smart enough to replace it with ID like that. So it converts the PHP calls as I execute that into JavaScript code.
Okay.
But it does it in a safe way, so that I can't just inject some JavaScript code, and I can safely output anything what user has specified me here. Yeah, for example, I might say like this, and if I click save, it works perfectly. But if you try to do it manually, you will run into lots of problems with encoding that. But for the same reason, it doesn't allow you to just call random functions because arguments might be messed up. So what is univ? Univ is something it is a jQuery plugin which is included when I include this file. In the API class, it loaded by default ATK for univ. It is located in templates, ATK univ, and if you look through it, it has all sorts of useful things. For example, location function. You specify URL, it will produce a redirect.
Okay.
Calling alert as well, because we cannot with this type of object conversions, we cannot write a location, document location equals something. Then we just create a function as a wrapper for that. It is much more secure than trying to do the wrapper in a PHP, which is what others actually try to do. It can log errors, display form errors, works with focus, and there's lots of other useful things. The good thing about this is that you can actually extend it and add your own methods to this. There is methods for opening dialogues and closing them.
So basically, if you need to use jQuery or JavaScript, you use this approach. You need.
Yeah, there are two ways. If you just need to add a supplementary function, you create your own class, like myUniv, which is very similar to this, and it's documented. There is documentation. I'm not going to go through that. And when you are in front end, you need to load your own class. So you load that, and you can use those functions. So you still have ability to call over JavaScript. This is another way how you can do something. Like in this case, we created jQuery UI widget, which is called Notify. It's a widget. Again, it's you can read documentation on jQuery UI how it's done, but the basic idea, there are as well other widgets or plugins like that. So it's really simple to integrate it and place it into jQuery namespace. So we just call that include, and then you can call the notify to use that box. The reason why it's included by default is because this file actually relies on it. When I call success message, yeah, that's the one. It used the notify to display. So it's using this widget to display the message. Okay, I'll not go too deep into that. So back to tasks. Right, so we enter the new task name, and then we output that. But we really need to create a new entry in here.
Yeah.
So how we do that is by, let's do it manually. Oops. Task equals, actually most of the frameworks, they offer you ORM, which is Object Relationship Manager, which is what models are. And they do not integrate them with the views. So this is how you would normally work. Here it's just an exception. Let's add model task line, and then task set name get task set date and let's say tomorrow. This function converts into anything. It parses and understands tomorrow or after 2 days. It converts into Unix timestamp. We need to convert it back to a unified format like this. And now that the task is defined, we need to save it, calling task update. So that's basically we manually create a task. Another curious thing we could do here, let's first change it to success message saying the task was added. And another thing is grid reload. We want to reload this grid. Okay, list of tasks. One problem though is that grid at this point in the PHP it's not yet defined. Okay, grid is only appears here.
Okay.
So what do? We can just move this line upwards to here. Yeah, so there's a little bit of overlap, but it's still.
We can see how it works.
Yeah. So first we create a form, then we create a grid, and then if form is submitted, it will reload the grid. So let's actually move this line here as well. Another thing is I as already mentioned, we cannot execute to change. So if I do this and this gets executed first, it will reload the grid and it will not show the message. If I exchange them, it will show the message, but it will not reload the grid.
Can I ask you why you don't need univ on the first one?
Because okay, I'll show you later.
Okay.
So this line, if I don't remove the execute, if I remove the execute, it produces the object. I'll put it into JS variable. I can feed it inside next call of the JX function as a second argument like this. So it basically takes this chain and combines with this one by prepending it. So first it's going to reload and then it's going to display this. So what exactly is JS? JS is a class jQuery chain. This is the class which implements that. So whenever I call anything on this, there is a catch-all function which converts it into a function call. Okay, that's basically how it works, and it stores it into internal variable. So when I do all the calls, and let's say I call execute. Okay, what is execute? All right, here. It is going to render the string. It will going to echo and it's going to exit. Okay, now some of those functions are designed to modify the behavior. For example, if you say selector, where is selector? If you use this function underscore append selector, instead of calling the function with this name, it is going to change the selector which is used for the chain. So by default, it is the name of the object, but you could set it to something else. Another thing you can do is system functions. That's the reload function. If you call reload, it is actually going to produce a slightly more complicated code, which involves so it's like a shortcut. It calls ATK4 reload widget. Yeah, it is widget, and it's going to pass the current URL as well as arguments. And so for convenience, just call reload, but it will add additional arguments to the call. We will see it just in a moment. So, all right, so we didn't execute that. So this JavaScript chain is in this variable. We specified this JS, a second argument, and when we execute the second chain, they're both actually going to be executed. Okay, I'm going to save, and this, okay, no such field, date, it was due date. Okay, you see there's a message. It appeared here. What happened with our network request?
So you are not refreshing the page at all?
No, it's just a part of it. So two requests. The first request is form. Yeah, so it sends the data with fields. In a response, it receives directions what to do. So the first is reload, and then semicolon, and then there is a second one. That's because we joined two chains. So reload is happening on the MVC grid, which is this object here. It's called ATK4 reload. It uses current URL, so to do. So Agile Toolkit can figure out what page it's on and automatically reload that. Also, it says that instead of rendering the whole thing, it will only need this particular object to be rendered. So not the whole thing, just this. And then arguments are empty. Here, it uses the if chain to display success message. Now, when ATK4 reload was called, this is a more advanced version of, there is a load method for Ajax, how we can fetch data. This is similar like that, but it's slightly more advanced. It produced a request, and data received back looks like this. So this is a grids HTML. So it has name, clear garage, all the tasks in there, and there is our new task as well. And just this object. It doesn't transfer anything else. And plus it will also define dependencies on any jQuery scripts which we might use in here. And this is initialization for the grid as well, which at this moment doesn't do anything. But if grid would contain any JavaScript actions like buttons or something, then it will be automatically loaded here. So you don't need to worry about the loading part of the page and then losing some JavaScript bindings on that page. So it saves a lot of trouble actually, and just works nicely. Another problem is that when I add something, this thing stays in here, and it would be nice if it would focus the field or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. For example, if we want to put some kind of jQuery to eliminate when the field is focused, how we can do that?
So when does it need to happen?
When, for example, we want every time the user click on the field and the field is active. So you want to delete the content of the value of the field.
Well, let's make it so when I click, it highlights this.
Yeah, for
example. And now it's the question about this first argument in here. For now, we left it empty or null, which means the chain is produced, but it's not binded to anything. But we can bind the chain. For example, that's our field. I'm just going to make variable like this, and then I can use JS function on any view. Let's say I say true, and I say hide slow. Now what's going to happen is this chain is always going to be executed. So when I when I refresh the page, it hides automatically. If I say click, then it's going to hide only when it's clicked. Okay, another thing I can do is, let's say I have a button here, and instead of hiding the field, I could say when field is clicked, hide button. Yes, hide. Okay?
Okay.
And slow. So when I click on field, button is getting hidden. And that's basically the logic of how we should do it. So this chain is empty, but we combine it with the chain from the button which hides slow. This chain is not executed because this is empty, but when we add it to this chain, we bind it to the click event. It's a bit maybe difficult to start, but it starts to make a perfect sense as you use it more. So in our case, we don't need to go do this much. So when we click on the field, we need focus, and that's all. This is standard JavaScript function. Okay, let's see. There is something. Not focus. Select. Okay, if I click, it selects. If you want to see how it's working and why it's there, you can look at the source, and there is this our new task, binds click event, prevents default, and then does the select. So pretty straightforward.
So you use raw JavaScript.
Yeah, it generates JavaScript, and it, even if some part of the page is being reloaded, because it understands JavaScript and it sits there as an object, it knows which part of the JavaScript needs to be applied. For example, if I click the save button, it reloads the bottom, but it doesn't add additional event here. So it only adds events to the area which have been reloaded.
Okay. So just to clarify, if I want to create any kind of JavaScript effect as a plugin or just to add something, do I have to do it basically directly on the PHP file rather than a separated JS file?
If it's a complex event, you might want to create a separate JS file, but then you assign it, you bind it with PHP. So PHP is only like a glue between different things. Like in here, I call it functions like message, but this function actually invokes a widget and does some manipulations. So I created this for convenience, and if for your convenience you need to do some effects, you can put them inside a JavaScript file and then simply call it like this. I suppose I should also know that because as I go through different pages, like go here and here, if I inspect any element like this, it have ID, which has application name, it has a page, and it has forms name and then field name. So you can use this ID. ID always unique, and you can use it to add some style or maybe JavaScript event externally, which also works. In some cases, this is what people want. It works all right. Form, again, you see the form has a div around it, and again it has ID. There's a page has ID as well, and so all the dynamically added elements have the ID. Input button. Oh, that's not the one. That's our button for saving, and again it should have an ID for save. So they're all unique, and even if you apply on this ID, they won't be exactly the same ID even on different pages. It doesn't matter how many pages you have. Always unique.